Despite the president's best efforts, Senate Republicans defeated his plan for extending and expanding the payroll tax cut next year, an unfamiliar position for a party that usually favors less taxes. Their argument in this case is that expanding tax cuts for most Americans and paying for it by taxing the rich is simply unacceptable. But as Think Progress sums this one up, they're essentially raising taxes on 160 million middle-class Americans to protect the income of 350,000 millionaires. And in another bizarre political twist, more than 24 Republicans also voted to kill a plan backed by GOP leader Mitch McConnell that would have extended but not expanded the current tax break and pay for it by slashing the federal payroll. So once again, we find ourselves at an impasse with the clock running out. Sound familiar? And once again, both sides are digging in. Listen to this.
We're going to keep pushing Congress to make this happen. Now is not the time to slam the brakes on the recovery. Otherwise, Congress may not be leaving. And we can all spend Christmas here together.
We don't believe in higher taxes, and we don't believe in more spending. But we do want to work with this president in terms of finding common ground and seeing how we can create jobs.
Our specialist today claims raising taxes on the rich is what we need to do to create jobs, and that the real job creators aren't big business or bigwigs, it's the middle class. Nick Hanauer is a venture capitalist and the co-founder of Second Avenue Partners. He's also co-author of the new book, The Gardens of Democracy, a new American story of citizenship, the economy, and the role of government, which is in stores now. Welcome, Nick. Thanks for taking the time.
Matt, thank you so much for having me.
So you're going to be the newer, younger, hipper version of the enlightened capitalist in the role that Warren Buffett has played for so long. I know a lot of people were angry by the provocative Bloomberg op-ed you had out yesterday, basically saying that a little redistribution could help create jobs right now. And you're not a Marxist making this case. You're a successful entrepreneur. Explain your thinking, sir.
Okay, so, you know, how people see the world is based on the assumptions they make about how it works. And most Americans, certainly the Republican Party, is in the grip of some very 19th century ideas about how the economy works. And they have this very sort of linear, mechanistic metaphor in their heads that if you just pour money into rich people like me, jobs will squirt out the other side. And clearly that's not happening. If you look at what's happened to tax rates on the very rich, and the amount of wealth that people at the very top have accumulated, and the obvious jobs problem we have in this country. But if you understand the economy as it is, as a complex adaptive system, as literally an ecosystem, then what becomes transparently obvious is that it's a system of interconnected feedback loops, and jobs are literally a consequence of the feedback loop between customers and businesses. So in that sense, middle-class consumers are the engine of job creation in an economy. Look, Matt, businesses hire when they have more customers, and they fire when they have less customers. That's by a full order of magnitude the only thing that matters to businesses. And what we have done in this country for the last 30 years is that we have systematically impoverished the middle class to benefit a tiny minority of citizens like me. And it's crazy. And the only mathematically...
Let me, Nick, because you're singing to the choir in a way that I think what you're saying is so important. I want to make sure that some of our gurus on the panel get to ask questions that will help frame what you're saying. Sure. I know Ari Melber, jump in.
I'm here to frame. Also, the Space Needle looks great behind you. I grew up in Seattle, so always like to see that. Are you basically saying then that this is all about spending? I mean, a counterpoint to you would be, well, what if people at the higher income brackets were required to spend all of any tax benefit or temporary tax relief that they got? Would that change your analysis?
It's just not feasible. Look, I literally make about 1,000 times as much as the average American, all right? And the problem is that my wife and I, we only have 3 cars. I buy a couple of 3 pairs of jeans a year. I go out to eat.
Have you thought about getting a 4th car?
You know, I could.
I'm here to frame this discussion.
But you know, the problem is that we accumulate wealth and sock it away into hedge funds in New York and other things, you know, at 100 or 1,000 times the rate at which we spend. as I pointed out in the article, for people like me, the one truly expensive thing that we spend money on is private air travel, which doesn't benefit the economy. You have this very insidious problem in this country where you have pushed all the income to the very tippy top. The top 1% now gets about 24-25% of total income, but the top 1/10 of 1% gets half of that. And that money is literally clotted. It's like a clot in the economic circulatory system. And this is the fundamental problem.
Let's get Crystal in. Crystal's got a question.
Hi, Nick. Have you thought about 1,000 cars? No, just kidding.
No.
No. Well, you mentioned in your lead-up that you felt the middle class, which I agree with, has been systematically undermined. So I was wondering if you could elaborate that and talk about some of the policies that you think have really been particularly detrimental, and with a forward perspective, what you think we could do to start to reverse this increasing trend of income inequality.
Well, I mean, that's a very long discussion, but there's simply no doubt that middle-class Americans have been trapped with stagnant wages and escalating prices for 30 years. Part of the problem, of course, is income inequality. When people like me have a situation in which price is no object, we push prices for everyone else up and force people down the scale in the middle class to borrow to keep up. So this is certainly a significant part of the problem. But fundamentally, we have the situation where we have pushed income to the top, right, in all sorts of ways, both economic and cultural. And we have decreased the rate at which we tax the top by 60-70% over the last 30-40 years. And the collision of these two things is devastating to the middle class. This country simply cannot afford to invest in the things that support the middle class to enable them to continue to be robust participants in our consumer-based economy, in this feedback loop. And the way to get it started again is for people like me to begin to pay their fair share again and support our customers. The thing that drives me craziest about these policies is that these policies are destroying our customer base.
So, would you?
Go ahead.
Nick, I want to get Touré, and we really need more people talking like this. Touré, I know, is got a question.
So,
yeah.
Are you supporting massive tax cuts for the middle class? And I would like to hear you unpack a little bit what you mean by middle class. Are you saying that the upper middle class is really the force, or the lower middle class? Or
the median family in this country makes like $32,000 a year. The median wage is $26,000. Right? How do you afford health care and housing on $26,000 a year? I mean, it's almost impossible to conceive. And there are a million ways. Look, I'm not a policy person, but if the people at the top, in the top 1%, and if corporations were paying taxes at historic rates, you could be recycling $300–400 billion back into the economy in ways that would benefit the broad middle. Look, the country, let me give you a great example. The country currently spends about $400 billion a year on various kinds of tax breaks to help people create wealth. The country used to be in the business of helping people become wealthy. Well, today, the bottom 60% of Americans share just 4% of that benefit. The top 1% get something like half the benefit. So we don't help people become wealthy in this country today. We pay the wealthy for being wealthy today. It's absolutely insane and upside down.
Nick, it's a fantastic message. I'm so glad you're speaking out on this. I hope that this message is going to go viral like Elizabeth Warren's video and like the Warren Buffett stuff, and that you're going to keep at this, because we need more high net worth patriots like you to sound this call. Thanks for writing this. Thanks for coming in today.